Howdy folks, so we're here with Richard Elliott, and I think you can call him Mr. One Loft Man of the Day. Well, in the last few years really, Maurice oDonnell. So we're going to talk about his birds, what he's been doing and the results he's been getting, and as importantly, what he thinks a one loft pigeon's like, what kind of bird a one loft bird consists of, and how he's created the most consistent one loft record around, certainly in Europe. So, how are you both?
Good. Fine, thank you.
So, let's start at the beginning. How did you get into one loft racing?
My first introduction, I think, was to a one loft race in Ireland. It was the Wicklow Hills one loft race, and pigeons were racing from Skibbereen, I think, someplace down that direction, back up to Wicklow. And I entered birds and I went there for the final, and it was like when you get into pigeons, once I got a taste of one loft racing.
When was this?
I think it was in 2009 or 10.
Right, so you've had 10 years at it then.
Mm-hmm.
And what were the results of that? Like, kind of what hooked you? You know, what made you think this is what I want to be doing?
Because I had my own pigeons racing, but I originally bought them to race long distance. And where I'm based in Ireland, we couldn't get long distance on the land. We had to go over the channel. And I wanted to test the birds. So I started looking then for longer one loft races to test strain of pigeons to see if they were as good as I hoped. And then I started sending to one loft races in the UK, and then the $1 million race.
When did you first send to the $1 million?
In 2011. And I dreamt of having a pigeon just to get to the final. That was my ambition. And in 2011, I had one pigeon went to the final, and he clocked in 110 position.
So that was your dream record, man.
I was ecstatic. So the following year I sent 5 the same way of bred, and the 5 of them scored in the hot spots. One of them actually won the Cascade Challenge with 4,800 pigeons, so he was first open, and he went on also to clock in the final. The 5 siblings clocked in the final.
All in the final. Let's take it back a minute. What are the base strains and where did you get your birds from originally? Obviously you've added in over time, but look, yeah. Where did it all start?
The original base birds were from a fancier in Belgium called Jos Jusen. And I had heard of him because he won an international in 2006 from Pepinja, just under 15,000 pigeons. And so I went to him in 2007, and I was lucky enough just to get there in time to obtain some young ones off of him, because 3 years later he won his next international from Marseille, flying 600 miles. And after that I wouldn't have been able to afford these pigeons, so I was lucky to get them when I did.
So the timing was right there then.
Mm-hmm.
So what, so they were the base. Have you added more in throughout?
Every year I'd say I'd add in maybe 2 or 3.
Anywhere specific, or are they kind of birds that you've bought that have done well in one loft races?
No, I've bought them at auctions, and because at an auction you get the chance to handle the pigeon, and if I like the way it handles, then I look at the pedigree. I don't look at the pedigree beforehand. It doesn't interest me. Pedigrees can't fly.
Have you always added birds in, or was there like a time when you started properly adding birds in from the original base birds that you had?
Not really. When I realised I had a hen and a cock that I would call a gold mine, for one season, from April to September, I kept everything off. The 21 youngsters, and I just put them aside into the stock loft. And then every year I added more, and I added children off of the children, and I kept some aside in the stock loft. So everything, and then when I added in other birds that I bought, I still knew that every youngster would have 50% of the blood of the original line. But the crosses seemed to work because my results started improving.
Yeah. And when do you reckon they start, in your head, when was the year that they really started kicking up a gear?
2012 $1 million.
The 2012 $1 million, that was fantastic.
And does that coincide with bringing these one loft birds in and crossing them in? I mean, is that what I'm trying to get at, is bringing these other birds in that have done well, the birds that you've been buying in auctions, was that the kind of around the time where it actually started getting even better?
Yeah, when I introduced a few other ones.
So it follows that.
Yeah.
It follows that pattern. Richie, you've been involved in one loft races from the beginning in
Yep.
Europe. Tell people about your
My involvement,
experience.
well, I started pigeons 25 years ago, and right away I got involved with one loft racing. Did a little one loft race in my own loft amongst locals, £50 a pigeon. And that really got me the bug for one loft racing. Did my own one loft race, Southwest one loft race for 8 years. Tough race across the English Channel, 300 miles. And went up to the east to west as well, Great Yarmouth, 300 miles. I always think 300 miles is a good test with the pigeons. Did it for 8 years, very successful. Maurice did very well in Maurice, especially when we went down south to tours, obviously attacking the English Channel. And I've just followed it all around the world. And recently, I had a couple of years out, got back into it recently, and Maurice's name just keeps popping up everywhere. Without a shadow of a doubt, he's got to be the number one in Europe at the moment.
What do you think his key to his success is? I mean, obviously we've talked about him crossing birds in and putting auction birds. What do you think other than what we've talked about, is the key to his consistency and improving consistency has been?
He's testing his pigeons in the tough one-off races. When I say tough, you've got distance, you've got heat, you've got channels. These are tough races for young birds to get through, let alone get his results he's got as well. He's always going into these races and having birds home, but you're there to win some prizes, because they're becoming more and more expensive, these races, so it's hard-earned cash that people are putting down. And what Maurice has done, he's just attacked the hard races. He's not shied away from anything, and it's just made him stronger.
And the key is you're competing against people's best birds. So that consistency we keep talking about is testament to how good these are. We talk about consistency and people that win races, and if you look at the history of the birds that have won races, they've always obviously been consistent birds. I mean, some of the races that have been won or come in the top 10, you can just see their positions are coming down, and that's what you've got. And we spoke before about, with the consistency you've got over the period you've done it, it's only a matter of time until those birds are going to be, I mean, we'll talk about it in a little while, but this weekend that you've been doing, but your positions are coming down in numbers, and that's what.
But Maurice's consistency is in the final of these races. He pops up on the hot spots as well, I'm not saying that, but in the final, it's so consistent. The harder it gets, his birds are going to be there. He'll tell you that. Yeah. For young birds under 6 hours, you're not too hopeful, are you?
No. The longer the race goes on,
yeah,
the happier I get.
Because you start, I mean, the base birds were long distance birds, and the hard birds. People talk about being a one loft type bird.
Yeah.
What do you reckon that type of bird is based on everything that you've known?
I don't think there's any particular type.
No, it's one loft pigeons breeding one loft pigeons. That's what I strongly believe in.
Tough pigeons breeding tough pigeons. They have to be tough pigeons to start with.
But have you seen different types, you know, body types and wing types, or do you see a common theme with these birds?
I think one loft birds, I don't like big pigeons to start with.
No, so they are, I mean, all of the birds
small,
in the top
yeah.
10 we've seen in the last year or so, they've been smaller.
Yeah. And I like to send as many hens as possible rather than cocks. The hens normally do better for me.
That's interesting, isn't it?
But I think young cocks at 9 months or whatever old they're
It's tough
too
racing.
much on their mind.
It's tough racing. And to get them back into condition, you know, you've got a big cock, he's harder to get back than it is a smaller hen. And predominantly hens do come through in one loft racing, especially the distance races.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot of hens in that top 10 of the race that have happened this weekend, which is, it adds it up. So looking forward to the future, what are the plans for the future? Well, let's start the future this weekend onwards. Let's talk about the results you've had this weekend. Tell us what you've done in the two races of this weekend.
On Friday in the Great Derby, there was, I think it was 10 or 12 pigeons came together, was it? On the drop.
10.
And my one clocked in 7th position. And I think I had most of my entries that came back in the final.
The part about that 7th bird is you're talking seconds there between first and, I mean, 10 drop, you're talking a matter of seconds between first and 7th. So
when you get 10 dropped together, it's just a matter of look whose pigeon clocks first.
Exactly.
But in my eyes, 10 of them are winners.
Yeah. They're all as good as each other. They all came together, didn't they? It's just a case of who went in first. What about yesterday's race?
Yesterday in the golden race, same thing. 10 came together, and my one clocked in 9th position. But then I also clocked in, I think I got 7 in the prizes, 7 or 8 in the prizes. And last year out here in the golden race, I got 12 in the prizes. They're the same pigeons, same way bred. There's a gentleman from Scotland that bought one of my pigeons that won 2 gold medals in Gary Tomlinson's Who Dares Wins race. And I think it was last year he sent 3 youngsters off that cock, mated to, I think it's a Ron Williamson hen, not 100% sure. And he sent 3 young birds to 3 different one-loft races, and he got prizes with the 3 in 3 individual races. And he sent me a message last night to say that he bred 2 off of my cock with the same hen and entered him in this race, and he won. He was in the prizes with both of them.
So that's a pretty good weekend.
Yeah. And then there's also a couple of guys from Dublin that bought youngsters off me to specifically enter here in the golden race, and they scored in the prize money as well.
So moving forward with the future, what are your plans? Are you going to, obviously you're going to carry on and
carry on because I love it.
And but you're going to be entering more races, more birds. You're in syndicates as well, aren't you? You know, you've got a lot of syndicate action there. So what syndicates are you working with at the moment?
Well, one of the syndicates is my own family, and some of the lads back at home that work for us. They don't keep pigeons,
But they're involved.
They don't have time to keep pigeons. I'm a hard guy to work for, so they don't have much time on their hands. So they look after things while we're on holiday out here, and they like to get involved with it.
And you talk about other people getting involved. That's what I love, and I've talked about it previously about one-off races, in that it brings other people in. You've just said that your family are involved. Now, previously, if you'd have been racing birds in your back garden, there was little interest.
They wouldn't even look out the window.
And Maurice let me in on a syndicate yesterday. He had 12 pigeons to activate. I wanted him to activate them, and just keep selling
5 or 6 of them were in the prizes, were they?
5 of them, yeah, so thank you very much.
So I just gave away a third of my winnings.
Well, that's what friends do, eh?
Yeah.
Friends do, yeah.
We're friends,
But
and we keep going.
It gets new people interested, and that's what, you know, like yesterday we had an 11-year-old girl watching the race. She's going to start keeping next year, and the fact that your family are involved and you've got people that you work with involved who've never kept a pigeon in their life, that's where I think One Love Racing is coming into its own. And we've talked about this before, but you know, it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and then you've got the elements of, you've got pigeon flyers obviously being involved and growing in interest there, but you've got that mainstream element and the ability for people to be able to enter birds into these races that don't have to keep a pigeon, don't have to breed a pigeon. That's where I think the future really lies. What do you reckon, Richie?
That's correct. We should do school syndicates out to the schools in the local area, and just bring the kids up to the lofts, and they never had a clue about pigeons, but when they left they were very, very interested in it. I don't know if any person's been to school with racing pigeons and explain what we do and how we do it, but the kids are very, very interested, and I think we need to do more with youngsters.
And how One Love Races is set up, it's a social thing. You meet so many people from around the world. You know, the two races this weekend,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of different nationalities there,
Yeah.
and you've got all this, you know, that same interest, that common interest. You're in a great location. A lot of these One Love Races are in great locations, and you've got hundreds, well, thousands of people in the case of these races, all joining together. And I see it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And relating back to what you're doing, you know, you've got that base now of birds where people know you've got the base, and I just see you're going to be putting into more races. We know there's more One Love Races coming up. You're obviously interested in the hard testing races which suit your birds, but ultimately I think there's an argument with them races that they're the class birds. You know, if you've got a relatively easy test, you don't really enter into you don't really enter in any easy races. So these hard One Love Races, by definition of them, they're all treated the same, and you've got them coming in. And I think the new phrase for you is consistent. We've talked about that already, but I think that consistency is just going to keep improving, getting better, a bit better, because you're going to be entering more birds into more races, and you know they're proven.
Am I right in saying you've won a prize every race you've entered in the last couple of years?
Every race, every win after race I've entered.
You see, not many people can say that. You've won a prize
Always
in
won
every
prize.
race you've entered.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's anybody else that can say that, is there? I don't know of anybody. Maybe there is, but I certainly don't know of them. And that tells it all, really, doesn't it?
I just hope it continues.
So how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way of them getting in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you about getting some of your birds to enter into these races? Is it Facebook?
Facebook or by email.
Okay, well what we'll do is on this video we'll put Maurice's details out there and his links to his Facebook and his email address and what have you. And Maurice was one of the first people I spoke to about One Love Racing and the birds he'd got, and I actually put a message out on Facebook asking who are the One Love Race men to go to, and this was 6 months ago now, and your name came up about 5 times, and that was the most popular answer. So, you know, we'll put all the details out. Thank you for the interview, folks. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for your time, guys.
You're very